All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's session on cultural sensitivity, embracing diversity. My name is Rebecca. We are very lucky today to have a number of speakers to share this awesome topic with us. But first, I would love to do a land acknowledgement for us. So in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play in the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and the Tsuut'ina Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation Region number 3, as well as all the people who make their homes in Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. It is important for us to acknowledge the land, and I encourage everyone to even take it a step further and do a little bit of learning on how you can play a role in reconciliation. And I will share a few resources on this towards the end of the class. I also want to acknowledge our funders who have made this presentation and so many of our programs and services that we're able to offer in the community. So thank you so much to Immigrant Refugees and Citizenship Canada. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to three wonderful speakers, Tara Tao, Cecilia Liu, and Michelle Chan from the Community Transcultural Support Services. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to them. I think you're all on mute.
Thank you again for all joining us today. I'm just going to pull up my screen. Alrighty, so thank you again for joining us today, and thank you Immigrant Service Calgary for giving us the opportunity to present on this topic. My name is Sarah, and presenting alongside me is Cecilia and Michelle, as Rebecca has said. Today's topic on embracing diversity in a multicultural society is in a response to the racism happening around the world, and the team really has worked hard to place a positive narrative on it, therefore the title, Embracing Diversity in a Multicultural Society. And as a result, we've done our best to avoid any biases, as well as shifting the focus back to what it means to show kindness and love others despite our differences. And we hope that the next 30 minutes can just be a time to reflect on our own actions and find new ways to work together to be a better community. So a little bit about Community Transcultural Support Services, also known as CTSS. And we are a nonprofit primary health organization that provides health information access and health service navigation to the community. And on the left here, you'll see a picture of our educational workshops that we provide to the community. And on the right is a picture of our community programs that we hold, such as exercise and recreational programs. So for our agenda today, we have 6 sections that we wanted to cover. So a little introduction, and just taking it back to some highlighted key terms that we want to define, and then following along with some facts of multiculturalism and what it means to embrace differences, and what are the ways we can strengthen relationships and our self-identity, and what it looks like to advocate for ourselves and others. And as well, we do want to do a little disclaimer, and we do want this to be a safe space where we are caring for everyone, and that we can fully participate in the content and reflect on our own experiences. And we're all here to learn and reflect, as we are lifelong learners, and recognize and respect that each of us have different life experiences, and we bring different knowledge and experiences to the conversation, and really emphasizing the importance of self-care and taking the time to care for ourselves, and recognizing that we have to put on our own oxygen mask before we put on others. So we wanted to start off with a little quote. Here you'll see the quote, "Diversity, many hearts, one community." We wanted to do a little interactive piece. And if you could share a couple of words that came to mind in the chat, that would be great. So we'll begin with our first section and highlight some key terms that we think is important to start the conversation on what it means to embrace our own and others' diversity. So bringing it back to what it means for culture, culture is defined as a pattern of behavior by a society, a group of people. And many things can make up a culture, such as food, a language, clothing, music, arts, beliefs, values, traditions, and these things really help guide our human behavior and shape how we understand the world. Along with that, we have diversity. And diversity in one word means differences, and just recognizing that each person is special and unique, and they're different in many ways. Along with that, we have multiculturalism. And when we talk about a multicultural world or society, we're talking about the many cultures and ethnic groups that live together, where all cultures are respected. And although we think that a society of many cultures and ethnic groups can be as large as a city, we can also see culture from a neighborhood or a school perspective as well. So I'll take that over to Michelle and she can continue.
Thanks, Sarah. So the goal of this section is to provide some Calgary statistics from the 2016 census. And we're going to focus on language and how many ethnic origins we have here in Calgary. And like just a little note that we do know that these numbers have probably changed and most likely increased with the number of immigrants and refugees coming into Canada, Calgary as well. But before that, we want to show you guys a little short video called If the World Was Only 100 People. And this video does a fantastic job summarizing how diverse and multicultural the world really is, just squished into like 100 people. So it gives a bit more of a perspective. Yeah, so we hope you enjoy the video.
Roughly 7.6 billion people share life on planet Earth, and that number is growing all the time. That's a lot of people. To understand what it actually means, let's simplify things a bit. Close your eyes and imagine what it would look like if the entire world was a village of just 100 people. In our global village, 50 people would be women and 50 men. A quarter of the village, 25 people, would be children under the age of 14. 66 villagers would be adults between the ages of 15 and 64, and the remaining 9 people would be over the age of 65. Looking at the world map, just 5 of our 100 villagers would come from North America. 9 would hail from Latin America and the Caribbean, 10 from Europe, 16 from Africa, and a whopping 60 people would be from Asia. Australia's population, even if you include the neighboring islands, wouldn't even add up to 1 person in our global village. Our 100 villagers would hold many different religious beliefs. We would have 31 Christians, 23 Muslims, 15 Hindus, and 7 Buddhists. All the other religions would be represented by 8 people, and 16 people wouldn't identify with any particular religion. We would be a polyglot village too, speaking many languages. Considering only native speakers, 12 people would speak Mandarin, the largest group. 6 would speak Spanish, 5 English, 4 Hindi, 3 would speak Arabic, 3 Bengali, and 3 Portuguese. 2 would speak Russian, 2 Japanese, and a significant majority, 60 people, would speak nearly 7,000 other languages. 2/3 of our village, which is 66 people, wouldn't have access to safe, affordable surgery, and 33 people wouldn't be able to afford the medicine they need. 9 people wouldn't have access to clean, safe drinking water. 14 wouldn't have access to toilets of any kind. 22 would have no shelter from the wind and rain. 1 villager would be dying of starvation, and another 11 would be undernourished. 22 would be overweight. 86 people in our village would be able to read and write, which means 14 would be illiterate. Of those 14, 2/3 would be women. only 66 would finish high school, and of them, only 7 villagers would go on to hold a college degree. While 18 people wouldn't have access to electricity, only 5 would not have access to a cell phone network. 47 people would be active internet users, which means 53 villagers would never be able to post photos, research anything online, or watch this video. Before we can change the world for the better, we need to understand what our world is like today. This is who we are. Imagine our village 50 years from now. What would you want it to look like then? Now open your eyes. There are 7.6 billion people waiting to see what you can do.
Yeah, so we hope you guys took something away from that video. It was pretty cool. The languages and the Wi-Fi part definitely shocked us. It's a pretty good rounded video. So moving on, like the video said, there's thousands of languages. And I like to think of Calgary kind of like that mini village because we have so many different languages that are being spoken here. Which according to the 2016 census, Calgarians have identified 140 languages spoken as their mother tongue. So this chart that we're showing you right now is just the top 10 languages and the percentage of people that speak the language based on those who took part of the census. So it's pretty cool, I would say. And then moving on, we have another stat from the 2016 census that shows us that there are over 240 ethnic origins in Calgary. And I think that's pretty mind-blowing for Calgary. That's pretty awesome. Very diverse and very multicultural. So we're going to take that and then we're going to move on to the next section called Embracing Differences Together. So we'll be defining some aspects which contribute to cultural barriers. We'll provide some practical ways to remove cultural barriers and why it's beneficial for individuals to learn from one another. So when embracing differences, it is crucial to recognize that there's not necessarily just one way to do something right or wrong. Typically, it's just something that we're used to doing or what we grew up doing. So something we're familiar with. So addressing differences with an unhumble attitude or arrogant or superior attitude is something we don't exactly encourage. So having a mindset is really important. Having the proper mindset that is willing to learn and ask questions is a great way to start understanding other people's culture. So going into the little definition, so cross-cultural differences, when interacting with others who speak different languages or have different values and beliefs, and their ways of life may be very different from our own. So this clearly will show some communication challenges and other kind of challenges that we need to recognize. And other people's cultural norms. So the standard that collective individuals live by, whether it is by a form of cultural practice, their greetings, their food and diet choice, and how they typically like their personal space. And then we have cross-cultural communication. Again, it's really important to recognize that there are different forms of verbal communication through speaking and nonverbal communication through action and facial expression. So the next slide will provide some practical ways to address these differences. So for cross-cultural differences, in order to better understand different languages, ways of life, we encourage people to make an effort to learn other people's languages, learn their culture, be curious, and be open to trying new things. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But do be mindful and be respectful. For addressing cultural norms, we encourage you to be aware of the differences and similarities with your own culture. It's kind of like a game of spot the difference in children activity books. we encourage the same, to have like conversations and befriend someone and just talk about your differences and similarities. And that is a great way to learn, really. And again, understand that this takes time. So we need to be patient and be kind towards others and ourselves. So for cross-cultural communication, we need to understand that each culture has a different way of communicating for both verbal and nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication, for example, shaking hands or eye contact can make another feel like super uncomfortable. And we don't want people to feel uncomfortable, right? So it's important to do research maybe about it if you're curious, or even just ask the other person what they're comfortable with. So in short, we really encourage approaching differences with a positive learning attitude. But also like be honest with yourself if you don't like something. For example, ethnically I am Chinese, so just because I love eating chicken feet doesn't mean someone else needs to love chicken feet in order to appreciate my culture or the culture that I grew up in, right? So we have differences and that's fine, as long as there's appreciation and understanding towards each other. And that is most important. Next slide is the benefits to learning other cultures. Building friendships. It is one of the best ways to truly learn about another culture. And I would say it's a better way than trusting in what the media has to say all the time. Because sometimes there can be false news or information that is inaccurate. So make sure you have trusty news sources. And understand the differences and similarities between cultures. So again, to learn from each other. And the great thing about this is that you'll never not have something to talk about. There's always something, whether it's culturally, traditions, or language or food. And then accepting culture differences. Again, we really want to reinforce that growth mindset. There isn't only one way to doing things. Every culture has their own unique way of doing things. For example, how they cook noodles or rice, or how they make their bread. And then in creating unity through this. So that goes back to our quote, many hearts, one community. And in this section, we'll be providing some practical points to hopefully improve relationships. And we recognize that the information can seem rather repetitive, but we see as the basics. And in order to grow strong individuals, we need strong foundation. So be intentional with your relationships and spend time with them. Learn and ask questions about another's culture, learn about yourself, embrace where you are in life and know that it's different from others, even if it's just culture-wise, experience-wise. Be humble and be patient. Clarify any misunderstandings and seek to understand first and foremost before coming to an assumption. And abandon a sense of superiority and pride, meaning we discourage the attitude that one culture is better or superior than another. So one of my favorite ways of putting those practical ways into action is through food. If you haven't noticed, I like to use food in my examples. Because for food, you get to spend time, talk about your likes and dislikes and so forth. So these few slides will show one variant of breakfast foods from all around the world. And the pictures come from BuzzFeed. You guys know what it is. It's a popular entertainment channel on YouTube. So here we have the US, United Kingdom, Sweden, Australia, Japan, Vietnam, Iran, Morocco, India, Brazil, Mexico, Kenya, Italy, China, Egypt, Russia, and Germany. So thank you, and now we'll pass it on to Cecilia.
Thanks, Michelle. So this section of the presentation, strengthening our self-identity, we would like to highlight how we can take the time to grow in who we are in our own identity through practical ways to build resilience and maintain our mental health. So self-care is one of the many ways to maintain and improve your mental health. And here we have highlighted 4 different aspects that you can focus on. So for example, you can take care of your mind by having a growth mindset, which is the attitude of continuously developing your skills instead of focusing on what you can't do. You can care for your emotional health by sharing your thoughts and struggles with your loved ones or even professionals if needed. And you should take care of your body so that you're physically well, and this can have a positive impact on the other aspects of your life. For example, getting enough sleep. And also, it's important to have social interactions to connect with others. However, it's also beneficial to know when to take a break from social media, especially in all of the chaos of the pandemic. So next, we have resilience. And resilience is important because you may be faced with difficult situations when confronted with perspectives that are different from your own or people who disagree with you. On a basic level, being resilient means being able to push through challenges. And one way that you can be more resilient is to be determined and not give up when things are hard. Also, you can be resilient by being kind and compassionate to others, as well as to yourself. So this means taking care of yourself and being forgiving when you make mistakes and applying that same attitude towards others. And you can practice gratitude by thinking of the good things in your life. And because being thankful for what you have can help you to be more happy. This doesn't mean that you should ignore the negative aspects or things that you need to work on, but focusing on the positives can help you persevere through tough times. And also, it's important to learn from your past experiences in difficult times and to think about what got you through it. Often, reflecting on your past, both how you acted and what you experienced, can help you explore and become more firm in your self-identity as you move forward. Next, our main message for this section is basically just to surround yourself with family, friends, and others that you know who love and care about you so that you can be supported as you take care of yourself and develop resilience. Know that you're not alone. So in our last section, we'd like to talk about advocacy, and we'd like to encourage you to advocate for others and for yourself in order to protect everyone from harm or abuse. In doing so, we'll also present some starting points in how you can do so. So this slide is meant to bring your attention to understanding what advocacy is and why it's important. So basically, advocacy is just speaking up and supporting someone with love and care when they need help. You can do this either personally with the actual person or by drawing attention to the issue or in calling for support if needed. And this is important because we'd really like to build a community where everyone can work together to prevent and reduce risks and experiences of abuse and neglect. So next, we have some points in supporting ourselves and others. So we'd also like you to take these tips and you can also apply them to having meaningful interactions with perspectives or people that you may not necessarily agree with. So first off, it's important to be educated and find credible sources backed up with evidence For example, Government of Canada websites or other statistics. It's really important to understand the issues that you're talking about so that your position can be more solid. It's also important to not be afraid to speak up, both for yourself and for others. So don't be afraid to talk about the issues that you face because chances are that you're not alone. Next, it's important to understand the difference between intent and impact. So this is basically the idea that your intentions may be good, but the impact on a situation could be negative. So before you do anything, it's important to consider the consequences of what might happen afterwards. And in the same way, you can consider and address the intent and impact of individuals that you are interacting with. Also, it's important to challenge behavior and not the individual. So this means when you're addressing any issues, you should be talking about the problem and not personally attacking the person or blaming them. So focusing more on what can be done better. And finally, it's important to be willing to make mistakes and admit to them because it's totally normal to make mistakes, but the most important part of addressing that is to be honest and humble. Now I'll pass it back to Michelle.
Yeah, so we thought it would be nice if we could provided some reflection questions. We encourage you to continue the conversation with your loved ones and community members, of course, adhering to COVID-19 protocols. The questions are, how can you reach out to others who are different from you? What's stopping you from showing kindness to individuals around you? What do you share with others who wish to learn about your culture? What can you do to improve your new and existing relationships? How can you improve the ways you respond to conflicts like racism? And you can also stem this out to stereotypes or anything that's been posing a real challenge. And the last question, how can you improve the ways you advocate for yourself and others?
I wanted to continue and take it back to the quote that we had in the beginning, diversity, many hearts, one community. And I would love if some of you could share other words that came to mind when we were talking about the presentation, or experiences that you might have had that speak to this quote. If you wanted to share in the chat, that'd be awesome.
Oh, hi, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, if you could share words that came to mind with this quote again after the presentation.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for your comments. I'm just going to read them out loud. This is the beginning for our quote is diversity is our strength. Learning from one another, seeing the world in new ways. Canada, multiculturalism. Literally, that is what we are. And then afterwards, as awareness and global village. So thank you for participating. And now we're entering in a period of Q&A. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to use the chat box and I'll read it out for you. Or you can unmute your mic as well. And we welcome that too.
I also let you know we are on Facebook Live, so we have some questions. We have a question from someone who's watching on Facebook. I think it's about the slide on how to surround yourself with loved ones for support. And her question was, how can this be done during this time of COVID?
Oh, that is a good question. Cecilia, was that your slide or?
Yeah, I can
Go ahead, take it.
Okay, so obviously with the pandemic, there's a lot of restrictions that we have to follow just to keep everyone safe. So it definitely makes it hard to be physically present with your loved ones, especially if you don't live together or if they're in a different part of the province or even the world. But I guess that's where we're really lucky to have the internet and social media. I know I said earlier that like it's important to take breaks, but I also think that it's really important to take advantage of what we have access to. So like, for example, we have Zoom and Facebook Live that we're all reaching you guys from. And so I guess it's a different platform than being together in person, definitely. And it comes with its own challenges, but I guess one of the only things we can do right now is just to keep connecting with people online and doing what we can to show our support to them through digital and like voice formats.
I think also, oh yeah, thank you, Cecilia. I think another one is, so you can still take social media breaks, are texting like with your phone number and even calling, because like FaceTime can work as well. I know for myself, I definitely need to take a break from social media. And I have been, it's been really nice. And I still do talk to my friends, just mainly through like my phone number, if that's what you call it. But yeah. So we have another question here, is how can I be an ally for other minority communities? That is a good one. I will do my best to tackle it. I think for one thing, actually a great example of this is if you guys are familiar with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, I would say something that is important for us to recognize is that things like this is not just a social trend. We can't just treat it like a trend. Like honestly, on my Facebook timeline, for like a month, it was all Black Lives Matter. And now there's like nothing. And I think that is like not being that active, I would say, not being very there to support the community. So what's more important is to, again, form that relationship with the community and be with them, get to know them, hear their concerns, hear what they need, hear what they lack. definitely serve in a way in which you can. Like don't give what you cannot give, basically, but also be generous. And I would say be knowledgeable enough to know how to recommend resources to them if they're really hurting. So like, for example, at CTSS, we offer a lot of programs towards seniors because we know even now we do our best given COVID protocols to take time to visit them when we could, make sure that they know that they're cared for. And especially with like Chinese communities. So basically really trying to meet their needs and forming that relationship, I would say, is the best way to be an ally. It's good to be outspoken, but you need your actions to reflect what you say. I would say that's the best way. Thank you for your question. I hope that answered it or inspired you somehow. Is there any more questions or comments? Okay, well, yeah, no, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. To those who are on Zoom and to those who have joined us via Facebook Live, glad you can join us that way. Yeah, and if you want to know more information about us, please feel free to connect via email, and be sure to check us out on our website. So again, thank you so much for your time, and we hope that you guys will have a great rest of the evening, and yeah, stay healthy.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I have posted a couple of links to some other anti-racism presentations that I have found helpful, as well as there is a free course on Indigenous history in Canada that anyone is welcome to explore. And at the beginning of the presentation, when I did the land acknowledgement, I wanted to mention some resources. That's one of them. And the other one is I'd encourage everyone to reach out to their public library that's closest to them or online. They also have a lot of Indigenous learning resources. And I wanted to touch on that last question. That was a great question. And one thing that for me has been part of wanting to become an ally is also awareness and educating myself. So that's why I posted those resources for everyone. I'm going to check one more time if we have any questions on Facebook Live. I don't see any more at the moment or in our chat. So thank you so much for that presentation. It was wonderful to have all three of you present. And thanks for the references there. I think I can also send the link, or if you want to add the link to your website on the chat, that way everybody can have that. That would be awesome before we go. And I will be sending an email to everyone that participated for an evaluation. Did you ladies want to share anything else before we go?